Okay. Hey there. Welcome to day 29. And Donald Trump, you are fired. Protest campaign. You know, I keep returning to this. I really am not I'm not an all doom and gloom kind of person. That was a phase in my life when I was an adolescent. I think it's something I'm strangely grateful for now as a mature adult. Well, dare say mature. I don't know if you'd agree with that assessment, but whatever. I think sometimes those of us who get a jump start on suffering, oftentimes we are those who become most quickly fed up with it and perhaps most quickly find a way out of it. So I like to temper all of this difficult, dark stuff that I keep talking about and dealing with here with this insane person that has been elected by a large number of unfortunately misguided and foolish people in positions of power and authority who are playing to the fears and the shut-in, kind of, as I've put it before, like a house cat mindset, without trying to denigrate or demean these people. But this happens. They don't realize that a human being is still a human being if we look different or we speak differently. It's not something we need to necessarily be afraid of. When we've been hurt, it's very easy to do this. What do you want? What are you selling? You trying to get my pants? What is this? That's very natural. An innocent person, a decent person, without even wanting to or realizing it, can trigger something. Someone I love very much in my life. I think it's possible to get a little too close for comfort when someone's been traumatized, and it takes a degree of maturity to recognize that. And it also helps if one has also have been through similar experiences to be like, I get this. I know what this is. I've been you before. I've been through this. So I want to occasionally, and I like Saturday night, I'm getting a little bit of a late start because I was doing some work on this and research, so this may run over. I don't really care. There's not going to be too much work to do on timestamps on this, but I want to recite something to you that is in the public domain recently, about 4 years ago. And I've never recited this for an audience before. It's extremely difficult. I'm going to have to read in mostly English, but in Latin, Greek, Italian, German, French, and Sanskrit in order to pull this off. So I've done this many times, but when I was younger, I didn't do all the research into the correct pronunciations, and I did do some work, like reminding myself about these things tonight and making sure I'm doing it correctly. And I'll do my best with that. I dare say I have a knack for languages. I've kept my Japanese for over 20 years. I still speak a decent conversational level of Japanese, even though I haven't lived there in a long time. But I'm going to read T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland to you. His 1922 groundbreaking, landmark poem. Came out the same year as James Joyce's Ulysses, which is roundly considered in the literary community to be, well, by many, to be the greatest novel of the 20th century. And so much was happening at that time, and the visual art world as well. And it's late in after Picasso and his friend Georges Braque had done all their wonderful cubist paintings, analytical cubism, and then synthetic cubism, analytic cubism, and then synthetic cubism, and then there was this whole futurist movement, and all the futurists went off to World War I, and they all died, which is awful. This futurism is very beautiful. I especially like the work of Boccioni, Italian painter. So there was, there's really amazing things happening in the early 20th century and in the art world. And I think here we are 100 years later, and some amazing things are happening also. This poem, however, speaks especially to this moment through which we're living right now. Because it's more or less thematically about, I have some notes here I'm going to have to consult to do this, and I'll talk about how I'm going to bring this to an audience that's unfamiliar with it technically, because one of my critiques of using like second person pronouns like thee, thou, thy, thine in modern poetry, like in sonnets, and I almost never do anymore. My first 10 or so I did, but it alienates an audience. I've said this before, and doing Shakespeare, it's also alienates the audience if we say like o'er the bridge or something for over the bridge. I was taught in school, in professional theater school, that I can't remember which teacher taught me this, and it's Saturday night. We're gonna probably have some city sounds like sirens soundtracking. Who knows, maybe we'll have a firework while this is going on. I would not be surprised. There's a section of this poem called The Fire Sermon, and there's also one called What the Thunder Said, so that's my favorite section, the last section. So who knows, maybe there'll be a thunderclap. I guess we've had some interesting serendipities with this kind of work before. And I'm going to enjoy this. The performer in me, this is part of, I've said many times when I was younger, it's an itch you can't scratch any other way. So I really enjoy being on camera and doing this very much. Even though this is horrible, I wish we weren't living through a moment like this. Just like I'm sure the people in the 1940s were not happy about having to send their sons and their husbands off to the beaches of Normandy, but so much was at risk. Sirens. So we're getting some soundtracking of the beginning of this. But this poem is very personal to me because at the end of it, there are 3 ancient Hindu words, and I will explain these now in preface because there's a connection to me personally that you've been seeing oftentimes if you've watched any of these videos. In fact, you're seeing it right now, actually. It's in front of you on your screen. So I will explain how this happened. The 3 Hindu words are datta, dayadvam, and damyata. And they're in a different order in the Hindu scripture. It's called an Upanishad, that they come from. They come from a Hindu scripture called the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. And basically, it's a group of, and you have to just take this all with a grain of salt, it's a group of gods and mortals and demons who are taking a lesson from an aggregate deity called the Prajapati, which is basically like all the saintly people you've ever heard of, all together in sort of one cloud is one image I can give you for how to think of it. That's the way I understand it. I'm always learning about this stuff, so if some scholarly types come in here and say, no, it's actually this, that's completely fine. It's okay. I'm still learning. But what I did is, I've been studying T.S. Eliot's work for many years. I'm very proud to share a name with him. And the way that I wound up living where I live now actually is because of this connection. It's very interesting that Just so happened that I brought a friend to where I now live in 2014, and that friend wound up living in a place where that was owned by a blood relative of T.S. Eliot, and called me up during the COVID, during the pandemic, and was like, "Oh, I'm moving out, but you came through and visited me. This is a cool place. Would you like to maybe consider, talking to the owner and taking over here?" And I did, and we hit it off. And this person named Eliot, spelled like my name, like the poet's name, and turned out it's blood relative of this person. It's fantastic. Holy cow, what are the odds of that? So it's interesting, because then all this horrible situation, the real estate agents happened on that property. So it's like, it goes back to what I've said before about, I felt somehow this conflict coming, the whole situation. I can't explain it, I didn't understand the details, but this convergence coming 17 years ago, and I spent 10 years exactly to the day running from it. And then I kind of turned, and I was face to face with Uber, and they were ripping my life apart. And I said, all right, Balrog, all right, demonic dinosaur logic thing. It's like, oh, I have more money than you, I'm right no matter what, that's what the Balrog is to me. It's an ancient idea. It's like the biggest fish goes home full. It's not right equals might, as is supposed to be in the United States. It's being inverted in this barbaric return to might, physical might or financial might equals right. We do whatever we want because we have more money. No, that is as anti-American as it gets on its face, without actually coming to vigilante violence. Here, right equals might. And that's one of the big problems right now, is these corporations are acting like they're above the law. Donald Trump is acting like he is above the law, and that's why he has to go. And he will be expelled from office by the end of this campaign. Mark my words, he shall. So these words in the scripture, as far as I understand, damyata comes first, and it's the third one in the wasteland, but it means control yourself. And then data means give. And then dayadvam means have compassion, or as T.S. Eliot, I think, used the word sympathize in his notes at the end of this. But so what happened is around 2013, when I was working in Hollywood, or maybe 2014, I was set up on a date, actually, with a young woman who studied at Yale University, an older language than, those are Sanskrit words. That's when I mentioned Sanskrit. This young woman studied cuneiform at Yale. Ancient Sumerian, specifically ancient Sumerian cuneiform, is the oldest organized writing system, the oldest written language in human history that we have ever discovered. And if you've seen this before, as you've been watching this looks kind of like a lightning bolt. It's not an accident. This is cuneiform. And so what I had this young woman do, we met up only one time. We were absolutely not right for each other. But I asked her to help me translate these 3 Hindu words backwards into an older language. So this says, damyata data dayadvam. If you pronounce this out, that's what it says. You pronounce it out in the Sumerian language. Now she is really interesting, again, vis-a-vis serendipity, or as I like to say, synchromancy. It's my word. She said, so it's a logographic language, a picture language like Chinese, so the sounds won't necessarily mean anything profound. She said something like it might mean like the horse walks into the barn and lays down and goes to sleep, or something like that. And I said to her, even back then, this is over a decade ago, because I had had some really weird experiences starting around 2007. I was like, oh, watch, it will. So curiously enough, if you splice in the definitions of the older language to the definitions of the Sanskrit words, which mean control, give, and have compassion. Control, give, have compassion. When I turned 30 years old, I got this done. Oh, it must have been closer to 2015 because that's when I turned 30. Anyway, or maybe I waited a little while, I don't remember, but 2014, 2015, circa, that's when this was done. But I got this done in November 2015. I think, or maybe it was probably early December I got it done. And I drew it out myself, and I had my artist just copy it, but I drew this. So anyway, if you splice in the definitions of the older language, and she looked like a ghost, this girl, when she she looked like a ghost, sorry. She looked like she'd seen a ghost when she saw this, or when we put it together, and when she translated it all out, because I was right. I said, told you. If you put it together, it means, and before I say this, so these are three cardinal virtues. And in the Hindu scripture, what has these groups of gods, mortals, and demons are taking a lesson in this aggregate deity on austerity. How do we live with as little as possible? That's what, being austere means. And if you're live today and you're not a billionaire a-hole, pardon my language, try to keep it PG on here. But if you're not a billionaire asshat, you probably know a thing or two about living on limited means these days. And then this aggregate deity of all the saintly people who've ever lived basically says one syllable, which also is in the Wasteland. It says da. And each group interprets it differently. The gods interpret here, they hear dam yata, they hear control yourself. Because if you were a god and you were powerful and could do godly things, controlling yourself would be a way that you would need to learn how to live with little. Don't be like flaunting your powers here too much. And if you're mortal, da, give. That's what they heard. And then the demons, so I think about corporations and I think of demons, the monomaniacal, only think about money and never sleep, and they're like a cancer cell, feeding themselves. They here have compassion or sympathize with others. Compassion's a better word for it. But so when you put it together, actually what this tattoo means is control yourself, and then it's to be able to be loved. Wait, I can't see the top part. To be able to be loved, to praise and water with, and give, to be able to father with, and then have compassion, to be able to water, which I was told means grandfather, with, dagger, bird, beloved. Now that's really interesting and very serendipitous, because a dagger mark is also an arrow, or if you look in footnotes, like if you ever see a little cross, that's called a dagger mark. But it's also a symbol ascribed to like an arrow, and I'm Sagittarius, so that's astrologically addressed to me. And I was born 2 weeks late, so it put me like a few hours like over into another star sign. It was very interesting. I was actually born on a different day on the West Coast, because it was like 8 minutes after midnight on the East Coast. So it's really interesting when I was born. So anyway, and bird, I used to have a tattoo behind this ear. It was a Greek capital letter phi for my love of birds, because birds navigate they have magnetic minerals in their eyes, I've learned. And that's one way we theorize they're able to navigate long ranges. They can see magnetic fields, and it's activated by the color blue up against their retina. So when they look at the sky, they can like see the Earth's magnetic field, which is amazing. I heard recently there's some dispute about that theory, but anyway, whatever. I got the tattoo removed, but it was really strange because I had it at that time, I think, and I was like telling her this, and she was just like, and I said, yeah, see, I told you, it's definitely, it's very strange. But so 3 cardinal virtues when I had finished 3 decades of life. So I'm not going to explain those words when I go through this, but I am, in order to help with comprehension of this, I am going to I'm not going to pause much. I might pause between the 5 sections and take a drink of water. I still have an ulcer under my tongue. Hopefully after the dark revelation at court yesterday about all this extra horrible work I'm going to have to do soon, I won't get another one anytime soon, because it's been awful dealing with this in a bit lip and 2 ulcers back to back. I gargled some hydrogen peroxide before this, so anyway, make sure we're still filming here. Yeah, oh, we're already at 20 minutes. Oh, that's ridiculous, but whatever. These videos may outlive me. Oh, I'm also wearing the Mind Stone today. I almost never wear it because it's so big, and I don't usually wear jewelry outwardly, but all this chaos, this like, looks like, you know, seismograph, an earthquake a little bit, this shirt. And it's like, hopefully like, get a grip on our mind here, like to do this and pronounce these things correctly as best as we can. I imagine I might do this again, but this will be fun. So what I'm going to do to help with comprehension is, excuse me, I'm going to, after I read something in a foreign language, I will sort of lean forward, and I may have to grab my notes or look over here to remind myself of the translation. I've done these translations myself. I did have a little help from AI, but I tell people, if you're going to use AI, especially for legal work, I call it parrot. Like it's a parrot sitting on my shoulder. Check it. Go and get it, do the heavy lifting, pull this out of this document, or go into the internet and dig this up as much as you can. But check it, because it is not great if you don't, and you can make huge mistakes and cost yourself a lot of money. And by the way, I can't give legal advice. I've said this many times in my episodes about law, legal work. I am not an attorney. I cannot give legal advice. Nothing I am saying constitutes legal advice. You do what feels right for you. All I can tell you about law is what I have done and what I think works. And I can say what I would do if I were you, but I cannot tell you what you should do, ever. I'm not an attorney. It's a disclaimer. But anyway, I'll lean forward and I'll put my hand to the side of my mouth and I'll speak in English, and that's me, translating something I've just read. So if you hear me reading, when you hear me reading a foreign language and I do this, I'm going to give you the translation interpolated into the text to hopefully help us understand this, because this is really, really, really intense, deep, epic poem. And I hopefully will get this done in the next 30 minutes, because then I'll have time to post this before midnight in California. Yeah. Then if I pause for a moment before reading in a foreign language, it's just to remind myself of maybe I've gotten a more updated pronunciation tonight. I've been working on this for like an hour and a half now. It's hot tonight. I need to take a shower when this is over, so I'm kind of sweating. Anyway, but I think this is really awesome and really important to hear right now if you've never heard this, because thematically, what this is about, it doesn't have a linear narrative structure, not really. It's kind of got an overarching theme. There's a French word, oeuvre. In English, we would say oeuvre. In French, we say oeuvre. O-E-U-V-R-E. So it's like sort of, it's super objective, or it's like its overall theme is kind of like, it can be phrased as like, how can life revive in people who have died inside? So for like people who are lost to despair, what is the way back? That's what this is about. And it's not a poem about despair, it's about rebirth, it's about new directions, and it's about like a return to our roots, because at the end, these 3 Hindu words show up. Control yourself, give, and have compassion is a direction to take. Now, I had been completely devastated by my early life. Devastated. I was totally at the end of my rope when I was 21, and like that, it all changed. And within 10 seconds, I would have defined myself as an atheist. I went from atheist to agnostic in about 10 seconds on the escalator at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City on August 16th, 2007. I will not tell that story today. But I think I did read my first sonnet to you guys, so that's what that's talking about. That experience is the most incredible thing I think that's ever happened to me in my entire life. The circumstances, everything that had to happen and go wrong for that to happen was just beyond otherworldly. It was suddenly, and I don't wish my life on anyone. I don't wish hardship on anyone, but to have that, T.S. Eliot once put it, the sudden illumination is like, that's what it's all about, guys. It's like, that's such a beautiful and incredible life experience. I'm so grateful, and that's what that poem I wrote, this new style of structured verse poem, like a super Shakespearean sonnet, is all about how much gratitude I have for having been brought back from the brink, because I don't think I would have made it through that summer, let alone that week or even that day. And it was like right at the edge. I was something beyond me felt like it grabbed my belt and yanked me back. And so that's what this poem is, very much kind of like that. And it's kind of an orchestra of voices, like a symphony of voices. And my other poem I read, Snow Blossoms by Half-Light, I took a lot of inspiration from the Wasteland, because it's kind of like all these different things coming together, and that's why it has a bibliography, is like different quotes and music and other sounds. And I quoted from the Wasteland. There's even a part, if there were the sound of water only, that's a line directly from the Wasteland, but it was broken up, and I read all across the lines, and I showed you a picture of that poem, and it looks like a storm of words with a sunrise breaking through at the end. Very much inspired by this, what I'm about to read. I've taken a lot of inspiration from this poem. But so anyone who's feeling like despair, feeling like you don't know what's going on, or you don't have any sense of, and it's fine, it's okay. I'm not saying it's better or worse to see things one way, or to believe in something or not believe in something. Figure it out for yourself. And if you think this is all meaningless and it's all random chemical swirling, okay, then that's the page of your journey that you're on. That's the page of the life book that you're on. It's not better or worse than any other page. It's not like I'm here saying I was like that and now I'm better. Well, I am, for me, I feel better. I am happier, even though my life I've been living in the wreckage of the corruption of this late stage capitalist system. Even though I've gotten dragged behind companies like Uber and have had my hair like basically fall out prematurely, and I'm covered in little red spots all over myself. I'm not gonna lift up my shirt right now. But I've got little herniated blood vessels all over my body, like I'm exploding with stress over this. And I've got like a dent in my cheek from how much weight I lost over this big case I'm fighting. Even though I'm like a warrior poet now. And I'm coming back from like a decade on a battlefield here, and I'm trying to say like, it's gonna be all right. Like, I've been way out there, and I'm telling you, we're good, because there's nothing random, nothing accidental. But if you think there is, that's okay. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but if you're not happy with that, try to rub shoulders with the idea that that could be a phase in your growth, a phase in your development. A young man once asked me during the pandemic, what's the purpose of life? And no one had ever asked me that before. And I thought for about one solid minute, and I gave him an answer. And to this day, I still think this is probably the best answer I've heard, or that I would give if someone asked me, what's the purpose of life? I would say the purpose of life is to grow. So keep growing. If you stop growing, like Donald Trump did when he was a teenager, in my opinion, look at what happens to you. Your mind turns into this vice grip. He can't not steal. He can't not cheat. He does not understand anything else. He does not connect his own actions with how horrible he feels. He's just like some beastly thing that like sees like a bug and he's like has to swat it. Like he can't take criticism. He can't. So that's an unhealthy person. His mind is like gnarled stone with all these like deep jackhammer grooves in it. He cannot feel peace even for a moment. That's why I say pity him, and pity all these poor, I'm going to call them sods right now, but it's a British term, but all right, I'll call them sods. All right, these poor fools. I try to get to go farther than the name calling them fools. These poor fools who don't understand this. They're not happy. People chasing after money thinking that they're happy. Ask any wise person who does have money. Ask Jim Carrey about this. He'll agree with me. It doesn't make you happy. Jim Carrey has a whole bunch of money, and he will definitely agree. It doesn't make you happy. Keanu Reeves, I guarantee you would agree with me on this. Does it make you happy, Keanu? No. He would say absolutely not. Probably Stephen Colbert, Jon Stewart, they would agree with me on this. Doesn't make you happy. Trump doesn't understand that. All his lackeys don't understand that. But wherever you are in your journey, that's exactly where you're supposed to be. And I'm not ever here to tell you that you're living your life the wrong way, unless you're unhappy and you want to change. Then I have some ideas for you, because I have been there. If you are really struggling in your own dark night of the soul right now, believe me, I have been there. I spent a lot of time rolling around in that place, burning in that fire, and I have come back. I got a big passage of text tattooed on my back and my own unique cipher that is from Moby Dick. I'm not going to recite it tonight. It's the last paragraph of chapter 96 of that book. If you're interested, you can go look that up. I'll talk about that another time. But so anyway, this poem, The Wasteland, is an orchestra, or like a symphony of voices. Like it's a broken, groping voices that they're failing to find meaning in things that usually we find meaning in, or failing to find sustenance, like in water. Like we seek water when we're thirsty, but it can also kill us. It can drown us. Kind of think about, it's almost like the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, fantastic actor Jeffrey Rush. His character Barbossa talks about when they got cursed, like food would like turn to ash in our mouths. Like you can't feel anything, can't taste anything, can't enjoy anything. That's what's happening here. It's like it's a symphonic breakdown, examination of like a breaking society, a society that's falling apart and losing its way, and then coming back to, in a very radical sense, classically radical sense, some deep roots in even older culture than modern culture, and all these modern languages go way back farther than that and get way down to it. What is going to carry us through here? How are we going to navigate our ship through these fracturing times? So this is incredibly apt to be reading right now, and I really hope you enjoy it as much as I do. So, without further ado, this is my first public recitation of T.S. Eliot's 1922 poem, The Wasteland. Make sure I'm still filming. Yeah. Oh, and lastly, I'll say he dedicates it in the beginning. There's an epigraph, and it's in Latin and Greek. And he dedicates it to, he says, for Ezra Pound, was a colleague of his and a great writer of sonnets, wrote way more than I probably ever will, as far as I know. But he edited this a lot. He helped out with this poem a lot. And so the first translation I'll give you, because I'll skip over this, but it says, for Ezra Pound, after the epigraph, for Ezra Pound, il miglior fabbro, which in Italian means the better blacksmith. So, okay. Here we go. Hold on a second. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I had to burp. I'm going to start it, and you know I'm going to have to do that. The Wasteland, 1922. Nam sibilam, quidem cumis ego ipse oculis meis vidi in ampulla pendere, et cum illi pueri dicerent sibila tithelis, respondebat illa, apothenein thelo. For I saw with mine own eyes Sibyl at Cumai, hanging in a jar. And when the boys asked her, oh, I should have told you what Sibyl is. I'm going to start over. Sorry. Sibyl is an oracle. It's a female oracle. When you hear that word S-I-B-Y-L, it's an oracle, and specifically the Cumaean Sibyl is referred to here. And usually when the word Sibyl is used by itself, is meaning the ancient oracle of the god Apollo, the soothsayer priestess of Apollo. So what's happening here is this is the translation of this. I'll just give you now. For I saw with mine own eyes Sibyl at Cumai, hanging in a jar. And when the boys asked her, Sibyl, what do you want? She responded, I want to die. Yeah. Yeah, this is really epic. So I won't give you that translation now. I'll just go into it. We'll be reading in English after that. So I'll just read that again, and then we'll be on to section 1. Okay. Sorry about that false start. Here we go. The Wasteland, 1922. Nam sibilam, quidem cumis, ego ipse oculis meis vidi in ampulla pendere, et cum illi pueri dicerent, sibila, tithelis, respondebat illa, apothenein thelo. Section 1. The Burial of the Dead. April is the cruelest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, stirring dull roots with spring rain. Winter kept us warm, covering earth in forgetful snow, feeding a little life with dried tubers. Summer surprised us, coming over the Starnbergersee with a shower of rain. We stopped in the colonnade and went on in sunlight into the Hofgarten and drank coffee and talked for an hour. Bin gar keine Russin, stamm aus Litauen, echt Deutsch. I'm not at all Russian. I'm from Lithuania, truly German. And when we were children staying at the Archduke's, my cousin's, he took me out on a sled, and I was frightened. He said, Marie, Marie, hold on tight. And down we went. In the mountains, there you feel free. I read much of the night and go south in the winter. Where are the roots that clutch? What branches grow out of this stony rubbish? Son of man, you cannot say or guess, For you know only a heap of broken images, where the sun beats, and the dead tree gives no shelter, the cricket no relief, and the dry stone no sound of water. Only there is shadow under this red rock. Come in under the shadow of this red rock, and I will show you something different from either your shadow at morning striding behind you, or your shadow at evening rising to meet you. I will show you fear in a handful of dust. Frisch weht der Wind, der Heimat zu, mein irisch Kind, wo weilest du? Fresh blows the wind to the hometown. My Irish child, where do you live? You gave me hyacinths first a year ago. They called me the hyacinth girl. Yet when we came back late from the hyacinth garden, your arms full and your hair wet, I could not speak, and my eyes failed. I was neither living nor dead, and I knew nothing, looking into the heart of light, the silence. Ud und leer das Meer. Desolate and empty is the sea. Madame Sosostris, famous clairvoyante, had a bad cold. Nevertheless is known to be the wisest woman in Europe, with a wicked pack of cards. Here, said she, is your card. The drowned Phoenician sailor, those are pearls that were his eyes. Look! Here is Belladonna, the lady of the rocks, the lady of situations. Here is the man with 3 staves, and here the wheel, and here is the one-eyed merchant, and this card, which is blank, is something he carries on his back, which I am forbidden to see. I do not find the hanged man. Fear death by water. I see crowds of people walking round in a ring. Thank you. If you see dear Mrs. Equitone, tell her I bring the horoscope myself. One must be so careful these days. Unreal city, under the brown fog of a winter dawn. A crowd flowed over London Bridge, so many. I had not thought death had undone so many. Sighs, short and infrequent, were exhaled, and each man fixed his eyes before his feet, flowed up the hill and down King William Street, to where St. Mary Woolnoth kept the hours with a dead sound on the final stroke of 9. There I saw one I knew and stopped him, crying, Stetson! You who were with me in the ships at Mylae. That corpse you planted last year in your garden, has it begun to sprout? Will it bloom this year, or has the sudden frost disturbed its bed? Oh, keep the dog far hence that's friend to men, or with his nails he'll dig it up again. You, hypocrite, lecteur, mon semblable, mon frère. Section 2. A game of chess. The chair she sat in, like a burnished throne, glowed on the marble, where the glass held up by standards wrought with fruited vines, from which a golden Cupidon peeped out. Another hid his eyes behind his wing. Doubled the flames of 7-branched candelabra, reflecting light upon the table as the glitter of her jewels rose to meet it. From satin cases poured in rich profusion. In vials of ivory and colored glass unstoppered lurked her strange synthetic perfumes, unguent, powdered, or liquid, troubled, confused, and drowned the scents and odors. Stirred by the air that freshened from the window, These ascended in fattening the prolonged candle flames, flung their smoke into the laquiaria, stirring the pattern on the coffered ceiling. Huge sea wood fed with copper burned green and orange, framed by the colored stone, in which sad light a carved dolphin swam. Above the antique mantel was displayed, as though a window gave upon the sylvan scene, the change of Philomel by the barbarous king so rudely forced. Yet there the nightingale filled all the desert with inviolable voice, and still she cried, and still the world pursues, jug, jug to dirty ears. And other withered stumps of time were told upon the walls. Staring forms leaned out, leaning, hushing the room enclosed. Footsteps shuffled on the stair. Under the firelight, under the brush, her hair, spread out in fiery points, glowed into words, then would be savagely still. My nerves are bad tonight. Yes, bad. Stay with me. Speak to me. Why do you never speak? Speak. What are you thinking of? What thinking? What? I never know what you are thinking. Think. I think we are in Rat's Alley, where the dead men lost their bones. What is that noise? The wind under the door. What is that noise now? What is the wind doing? Nothing again, nothing. Do you know nothing? Do you see nothing? Do you remember nothing? I remember. Those are pearls that were his eyes. Are you alive or not? Is there nothing in your head? But, oh, that Shakespearean rag. It's so elegant, so intelligent. What shall I do now? What shall I do? I shall rush out as I am and walk the street with my hair down so. What shall we do tomorrow? What shall we ever do? The hot water at 10. And if it rains, a closed car at 4. And we shall play a game of chess, pressing lidless eyes and waiting for a knock upon the door. When Lil's husband got demobbed, I said, I didn't mince my words, I said to her myself, hurry up, please, it's time. Now Albert's coming back, make yourself a bit smart. He'll want to know what you done with that money he gave you to get yourself some teeth. He did, I was there. You have them all out, Lil, and get a nice set, he said. I swear I can't bear to look at you. And no more can't I said. And think of poor Albert. He's been in the army 4 years. He wants a good time. And if you don't give it him, there's others will, I said. Oh, is there, she said. Something of that, I said. Then I'll know who to thank, she said, and give me a straight look. Hurry up, please, it's time. If you don't like it, you can get on with it, I said. Others can pick and choose if you can't. But if Albert makes off, it won't be for lack of telling. You ought to be ashamed, I said, to look so antique, and her only 31. I can't help it, she said, pulling a long face. It's them pills I took to bring it off, she said. She's had 5 already, and nearly died of young George. The chemist said it would be all right, but I've never been the same. You are a proper fool, I said. Well, if Albert won't leave you alone, there it is, I said. What you get married for if you don't want children? Hurry up, please, it's time. Well, that Sunday Albert was home. They had a hot gammon, and they asked me into dinner to get the beauty of it hot. Hurry up, please, it's time. Hurry up, please, it's time. Good night, Bill. Good night, Lou. Good night, May. Good night, ta-ta. Good night, good night. Good night, ladies. Good night, sweet ladies. Good night. Good night. Section 3, the Fire Sermon. The river's tent is broken. The last fingers of leaf clutch and sink into the wet bank. The wind crosses the brown land unheard. The nymphs are departed. Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song. The river bears no empty bottles, sandwich papers, silk handkerchiefs, cardboard boxes, cigarette ends, or other testimony of summer nights. The nymphs are departed, and their friends, the loitering heirs of city directors, departed, have left no addresses. By the waters of Le Mans I sat down and wept. Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song. Sweet Thames, run softly, for I speak not loud or long. But at my back in a cold blast I hear the rattle of the bones, and chuckle spread from ear to ear. A rat crept softly through the vegetation, dragging its slimy belly on the bank while I was fishing in the dull canal on a winter evening round behind the gas house, musing upon the king my brother's wreck, and on the king my father's death before him. White bodies naked on the low, damp ground, and bones cast in a little low, dry garret, rattled by the rat's foot only, year to year. But at my back from time to time I hear the sound of horns and motors which shall bring Sweeney to Mrs. Porter in the spring. Oh, the moon shone bright on Mrs. Porter and on her daughter. They wash their feet in soda water. Et oh, ces voix d'enfants chantant dans la coupole. And oh, these children's voices singing in the cupola. Twit, 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 jug, 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 so rudely forced. Teary, unreal city, under the brown fog of a winter noon. Mr. Eugenides, the Smyrna merchant, unshaven, with a pocket full of currants, CIF London, documents at sight, asked me in demotic French to luncheon at the Cannon Street Hotel, followed by a weekend at the Metropole. At the violet hour, when the eyes and back turn upward from the desk, when the human engine waits like a taxi, throbbing, waiting, I, Tiresias, though blind, throbbing between two lives, old man with wrinkled female breasts, can see at the violet hour, the evening hour that strives homeward and brings the sailor home from sea, the typist home at tea time, clears her breakfast, lights her stove, and lays out food in tins. Out of the window perilously spread, her drying combinations touched by the sun's last rays. On the divan are piled, at night her bed, stockings, slippers, camisoles, and stays. I, Tiresias, old man with wrinkled dugs, perceived the scene and foretold the rest. I too awaited the expected guest. He, the young man carbuncular, arrives, a small house agent's clerk with one bold stare, one of the low on whom assurance sits, as a silk hat on a Bradford millionaire. The time is now propitious, as he guesses. The meal is ended, she is bored and tired, endeavors to engage her in caresses which still are unreproved if undesired. Flushed and decided, he assaults at once. Exploring hands encounter no defense. His vanity requires no response. and makes a welcome of indifference. And I, Tiresias, have forsuffered all, enacted on this same divan or bed. I who have sat by Thebes below the wall and walked among the lowest of the dead, bestows one final patronizing kiss and gropes his way, finding the stairs unlit. She turns and looks a moment in the glass, hardly aware of her departed lover. Her brain allows one half-formed thought to pass. Well, now that's done, and I'm glad it's over. When lovely woman stoops to folly and paces about her room again alone, she smooths her hair with automatic hand and puts a record on the gramophone. This music crept by me upon the waters, and along the Strand, up Queen Victoria Street. Oh, city, city, I can sometimes hear, beside a public bar in Lower Thames Street, the pleasant whining of a mandolin, and a clatter and a chatter from within, where fishmen lounge at noon, where the walls of Magnus Martyr hold inexplicable splendor of Ionian white and gold. The river sweats oil and tar. The barges drift with the turning tide, red sails wide to leeward swing on the heavy spar. The barges wash drifting logs down Greenwich Reach past the Isle of Dogs. Way-a la la, lay-a, wa la la, lay-a la la. Elizabeth and Leicester, beating oars. The stern was formed, a gilded shell, red and gold. The brisk swell rippled both shores. Southwest wind carried down the stream. The peal of bells, white towers. Way-a la la, lay-a, wa la la, lay-a la la. Trams and dusty trees, hybrid bore me. Richmond and Kew undid me. By Richmond I raised my knees, supine on the floor of a narrow canoe. My feet are at Moorgate, and my heart under my feet. After the event he wept. He promised a new start. I made no comment. What should I resent? On Margate sands, I can connect nothing with nothing. The broken fingernails of dirty hands. My people, humble people who expect nothing. La la. To Carthage then I came. Burning, 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 burning. O Lord, thou pluckest me out. O Lord, thou pluckest. Burning. Section 4, Death by Water. Phlebas the Phoenician, a fortnight dead, forgot the cry of gulls and the deep sea swell and the profit and loss. A current under sea picked his bones in whispers. As he rose and fell, he passed the stages of his age and youth, entering the whirlpool. Gentile or Jew, O you who turn the wheel and look to windward, consider Phlebas, who was once handsome and tall as you. Section 5, What the Thunder Said. After the torchlight red on sweaty faces, after the frosty silence in the gardens, after the agony in stony places, the shouting and the crying, prison and palace and reverberation of thunder of spring over distant mountains, He who was living is now dead. We who were living are now dying, with a little patience. Here is no water, but only rock. Rock and no water, and the sandy road, the road winding above among the mountains, which are mountains of rock without water. If there were water, we should stop and drink. Amongst the rock, one cannot stop or think. Sweat is dry, and feet are in the sand. If there were only water amongst the rock, dead mountain mouth of carious teeth that cannot spit. Here one can neither stand nor lie nor sit. There is not even silence in the mountains, but dry, sterile thunder without rain. There is not even solitude in the mountains, but red, sullen faces sneer and snarl from doors of mud-cracked houses. If there were water, and no rock, if there were rock, and also water, and water, a spring, a pool among the rock, if there were the sound of water only, not the cicada and dry grass singing, but sound of water over a rock, where the hermit thrush sings in the pine trees. Drip, drop, drip, drop, 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 but there is no water. Who is the third who walks always beside you? When I count, there are only you and I together, but when I look ahead up the white road, there is always another one walking beside you, gliding, wrapped in a brown mantle, hooded. I do not know whether a man or a woman, but who is that on the other side of you? What is that sound high in the air? Murmur of maternal lamentation. Who are those hooded hordes swarming over endless plains, stumbling in cracked earth, ringed by the flat horizon only? What is the city over the mountains? Cracks and reforms and bursts in the violet air. Falling towers. Jerusalem, Athens, Alexandria, Vienna, London. Unreal. A woman drew her long black hair out tight and fiddled whisper music on those strings, and bats with baby faces in the violet light whistled and beat their wings and crawled head downward down a blackened wall and upside down in air were towers tolling reminiscent bells that kept the hours and voices singing out of empty cisterns and exhausted wells. In this decayed hole among the mountains, in the faint moonlight, the grass is singing over the tumbled graves about the chapel. There is the empty chapel, only the winds hum. It has no windows, and the door swings. Dry bones can harm no one. Only a cock stood on the roof tree, co-co-rico, co-co-rico, in a flash of lightning, then a damp gust bringing rain. Ganga was sunken, and the limp leaves waited for rain, while the black clouds gathered far distant over Himavant. The jungle crouched, humped in silence. Then spoke the thunder. Da, da, da. What have we given? My friend, blood shaking my heart, the awful daring of a moment's surrender, which an age of prudence can never retract. By this and this only we have existed, which is not to be found in our obituaries, or in memories draped by the beneficent spider, or under seals broken by the lean solicitor in our empty rooms. Dayadvam. I have heard the key turn in the door once and turn once only. We think of the key, each in his prison thinking of the key, each confirms a prison only at nightfall. Ethereal rumors revive for a moment, a broken Coriolanus. Da damyata. The boat responded gaily to the hand expert with sail and oar. The sea was calm. Your heart would have responded gaily when invited, beating obedient to controlling hands. I sat upon the shore fishing, with the arid plain behind me. Shall I at least set my lands in order? London Bridge is falling down, falling down, falling down. Poi s'ascose nel fuoco che gli affina. Quando fiam uti calidon. Then he vanished into the refining fire. When shall I become as the swallow? Oh, swallow, swallow, le prince d'Aquitaine, à la tour abolie. The prince of Aquitaine at the ruined tower. These fragments I have shored against my ruins. Why then I'll fit you. Hieronymo's mad again. Datta, dayadvam, damyata, shanti, shanti, shanti. Well, I know it's not a performer's job to judge the performance. I did okay with that. I completely forgot to read you a list of like words and names that we were going to encounter and what they mean. The Starnbergersee, Lake Starnberg. Le prince d'Aquitaine à la tour abolie. Le prince d'Aquitaine à la tour abolie. And it's che li affina, s'ascose nel fuoco che li affina. He vanished into the refining fire. Oh, and shanti, if you never heard that word before, you might have. It means the peace which passeth understanding. Yeah, it's really cool, guys. I'll do that again. I think before we get to maybe the end of this 100 days, I'll do that again. I'll practice it. Because some of my pronunciations of certain words were wrong. And I completely forgot there was a little bit more. Yeah, hypocrite lecteur, mon semblable, mon frère. Frère is brother, like frère Jacques, like brother Jack. Semblable. I can't look stuff up while I'm filming. It's on my phone. So I guess I could grab my laptop, but I need to end this. It's getting close to midnight, but try to always make the cutoff Pacific time. Yeah, you know, a good poem I think has great replay value, like a good film. Get more out of it as we return to it throughout our lives, and that's an intense work of fiction that he did. I mean, he is, in my opinion, the greatest poet of the 20th century. That's that's impressive that he did that. And the bibliography for that is, like I have a bibliography for one of my poems, and I'm telling you right now, like that, like look at this. I'll show you this real quick. This is the last page, and then notes on the wasteland, and he's got all. I mean, this is wild. He wrote a whole passage from Ovid here. It says it's of great anthropological interest, and he types this all out in Latin. I mean, people used to really, really, really love to read 100 years ago, and love to sit down and have coffee and talk about this literature and that literature, and that still exists. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't, but nowadays it's like we gotta, people should be interested in what they're interested in, but we just got we've become decadent. We've really lost a step. We've gotten these advanced toys and these advanced tools, and I'm gonna unfold my legs now. We've lost a step here. So, yeah, it's cool to be interested and to be curious and to love learning. I think that's the best thing we can instill in people in school, is a love of learning. My father agrees with me on that. I remember talking to him about that, actually. We don't agree on very much, but my father does agree with me on that. And most, I think, really good teachers also agree. The best thing you can teach people is to love learning, so they continue learning and growing when they leave school. But anyway, I'm going to call it here. I wish you a peaceful, restful weekend. And, some serious, heavy stuff we're dealing with here, so it's nice to take a little break and step back from it. I think it's healthy, and take a look at something from ages past, at least an age past. This is from an older world, 1920s. This is before World War II. It's between the world wars, and at the very end of World War. What was the end of World War I? I think it was actually 1918. I think it was 1918. So yeah, between the two wars. There was no cell phones, no internet. People read books, talked about books. It's cool to be able to speak multiple languages. It is still cool. Anyway, see you tomorrow for day 30, almost a third of the way through this. And yeah, I'll share that with you again. I'll practice it. Le prince d'Aquitaine, le prince d'Aquitaine, à la trop abolie, This French is a little tough. Pronunciation of French is tough. Anyway, get some rest, guys, and try to remember to laugh if you can. If you can laugh, I had a teacher once say to me, I think, if you can still, no matter what's going on, if you can find a way to still laugh, you're doing okay. That was a poem that's about coming out of despair. So laughter helps. It's one of life's great cure-alls. Like singing. Try singing in your car, even if you think you can't sing. If you can talk, you can sing. Try singing. Get it out, or write it down, and keep it in. Keeping it in is unhealthy. Anyway, peace be with you. Thanks for listening. See you tomorrow. Good night.